The Knights of San Luis, Book 1, Prologue. James and his companion Dirk walked behind a short, hooded figure. They tramped through tall, dead grass under a pale light emanating from the cloak of the figure before them. A sheer black sheet of sky spread overhead. The Empyrean was far from dawning. Adrenaline pulsed through James's veins, and he rotated his shoulders under the weight of a heavy backpack. He held his battle axe with a tense hand and glanced around for signs of an ambush, but he most feared the man they followed. "This is where I leave you," the hooded figure said. "It's about another half-mile. Just follow that hill around to the right. Remember, they've marked the spot with a flat, concrete slab." "Any chance of an enchantment for the road?" Dirk asked. In the light from the cloak, James could just make out a smile on his friend. "No, I can't chance them questioning where you got it. I've put myself at enough risk to lead you here." "On the king's orders," James said. "Yes, I live and die by his pleasure," the figure replied in a monotone voice. "However, this is as much as I can do for you. Remember, 8 men are stationed here. Expect 4 at the top of the hill and 4 sleeping in a Wildian settlement about half a mile away. Only one is a Highlander." "Thank you," James replied, "and I'm sorry for my careless words." He added with force, "But if this is a trap, may the light forsake you." "It wouldn't be alone in doing so." With that, the hooded man departed back the way he'd come. "Rather mirthless fellow," Dirk said. "He has reason to be. We knew each other before he joined the rebellion, and I convinced his parents to disown him after he fled the capital. I never suspected his true allegiance." "Well, what's the plan?" Dirk asked. James looked up the hill and saw a bit of light from the top. In the silence of the night, he heard laughter. "Climb the backside of the hill, but stay clear of them. Don't activate your armor and don't let them spot you. I'm going to start opening the rift, which will draw their attention. Attack from behind once they notice me." "For the key to this entire war, they sure have slack security here." "They have no idea we can open it." James walked slowly and silently, crawling on his belly the last quarter mile through the grass. The pack dug terribly into his back. In the thick darkness, his only orientation came from the light of the enemy's camp on the hill. "I hope I don't get any ticks," he thought. "I hate ticks. I wonder if the Shadowlands have ticks." James finally felt the slab beneath him. Good, because there would be no other way to spot the rift at night. In the daylight, they said it appeared as a slight distortion in the air, as though looking through warped glass. James set the pack down, lay his back on the concrete, and stared up at the empty expanse. He turned on his right and saw a little lamp on a table with 4 men sitting in chairs beside it. One was a Highlander, the other 3 were shorter Wildians. A wooden keg rested beside them, and a little lean-to covered their heads. James reached into his pocket and removed a small golden corkscrew. "I hope you know what you're doing," he thought. He whispered the activation words, "A bottle for new friends." Just like His Highness to include a little joke like that in the spell. The corkscrew became fixed in midair and began to glow a bright gold. James's eyes burned with the sudden light, and he heard a low humming. Instinctively, he threw his concentration into his armor and felt strength flow into his body. Up on the hill, along with the sound of shouts, 4 silver lights ignited. Those would be the guards activating their own armors. James stood up and faced them with empty hands. "I'm here from Christopher to perform a new test on the rift." A moment of silence. One of them replied, "Nice try, James." James knew that voice. "Jed?" "I never thought I'd have the chance to kill you with my own hands." It was Jed. He couldn't stand Jed. A 5th silver light rushed up behind them. That would be Dirk. James swung his axe toward the enemies on the hill, and a fireball launched out of the blades toward them. Jed stood his ground and knocked it off course with his sword. It slammed into a young oak tree, which burst into flames with crackling and popping. The dancing flames illuminated the scene. In the meantime, James took the first half of the hill in a single leap and began running up the second half, the light of both the fire and the king's spell reflected from his blade. Behind him, an enormous form made of golden light in the shape of the corkscrew engulfed its physical counterpart. The giant corkscrew began twisting, the hum growing louder and even lower pitched. In that bright display, the rift itself became visible, and its distortion in space steadily increased. Up top, the brilliant Dirk held his own for long enough to be joined by his friend. James crashed into the melee, brandishing his bright blade. Your sister rang me up the other day, Jed panted between blows. James couldn't allow himself to get distracted by the talk. He kept Jed on the defensive while dodging the mid-length spear of his shorter toady. She said she missed feeling my caresses all over her body. I replied that I don't consort with whores. James swung with all his might, which left him off guard to a glancing stab in the stomach from Jed's Wildian ally. Jed laughed. Always the temper. About that time, Dirk managed to impale one of the other Wildians in the chest. The fourth assailant, wielding a large mace, took advantage of his partner serving as a sheath and waged an offensive. Dirk let go of his sword and dodged to the left. The inexperienced soldier's mace smashed into a stone in the ground, bursting it into 1,000 pieces. Dirk twisted back around and slid the sword out of his opponent's warm body. Jed turned and noticed the defeat. Immediately, he bounded down the hill. Hold them, he shouted from midair. He's going for the guards, James said. I know, Dirk replied, but the fierce Wildians kept them engaged. The fire spread from the oak to the dry surrounding grass. Good, that could provide a distraction. Dirk landed a decisive blow in his opponent's skull. The last one fell to his knees and threw down his weapon. I surrender, he said. Dirk raised his sword. Stop, James said. He's just a Wildian. Who knows his real reasons for engaging in the rebellion? Dirk looked with pity. Jed's going to return with 4 more. We can't afford to spare him. Please, I have a wife and children. 6 children, the man said. Dirk spat on the ground. You're barely 20. 1 child, the man corrected. James took his axe and cut the man across both Achilles' tendons. In blood and pain, he fell down screaming. If your overlords care for you as they claim, let them tend those. James held his stomach and Dirk asked, How bad? I'll survive. Gather their weapons? No time, James said. Besides, by now they're all disenchanted. They jogged down the hill. Pain started sinking in now that the immediate fight had ended. James moved a bit slowly, but the armor gave him strength. The golden light had transformed itself more or less into a circle, and the hum grew almost inaudible. As they approached it, it vanished entirely. What happened? Dirk asked. The spell either completed or aborted. They walked onto the concrete. The spreading fire lit the area, but they saw nothing where the rift had been. James reached forward and his hand hit something smooth, but very firm. It's solid, he said. Dirk circled the spot, then said, Look here. James walked around the invisible, solid wall, and a tunnel revealed itself on the other side. It looked like a circular cave, the walls cut in a spiraling corkscrew shape. It extended for maybe 100 yards, and light came through from the other end. Relief flooded James, but he had no time to stop and celebrate. What now? Dirk asked. We go through and start our resistance. No, I need to guard it from this side. That's insane. It's you against 5 of them. Dirk grinned. I'm not the one who got injured, am I? Listen, you know the king designed this to stay open only long enough for us to pass through. All I have to do is delay them for a few minutes and you'll be safe. And you'll die. I swore to in my knighting. You fool, James said. If you can, avenge my sister's chastity on Jed. Gladly, Dirk replied with a grin. Enjoy the Shadowlands, for my sake. James picked up his pack and walked through the tunnel. Warmth radiated from the walls, and his footsteps echoed in his ears. About halfway through, he saw a field on the other side. In the night sky, tiny points of light hung in the sky like jewels. The beauty of the sight shocked him. What is this place? He heard a young woman's voice. This side. There's something here. This has been the prologue of the Knights of San Luis, Book 1. If you enjoyed this and would like to read the book once it's complete and ready to go, just give me your name and email address right below here, and I'll keep you connected and send you an update when the book is complete and ready to buy. Enjoy.